Hello? Okay, I fixed it this time. Yes, it's brighter. I will wait for people to join. Does that look okay? Sure. Hello, how are you? Hello. Hello, we're just waiting on people to join. Thank you for joining. I'm getting used to looking at this camera. I am adjusting. Are we good? I think we're good. Hello, thank you for joining. I am waiting for people to pop in and then we'll get started. Hi, Lance, what's up? Hello. Just making this smaller. It's 5 o'clock. Hello, thank you for joining. Okay, I think that's good enough. Do I live in Notre Dame? No? Hi, Danielle, how are you? Do I live in Notre Dame? Why would you ask that? Hi, Danielle. I'm glad you're here. Oh, the bells. It's a very old clock. Okay, that makes sense now. Church bells, thought you might be chilling with Quasimodo. No, it's just a very old clock on the wall. It is a little creepy. Yeah, in the Pacific time zone. Let's go, Brandon. It's a Brandon world, especially today. It's a very Brandon world. Okay. So I'll wait just another minute and then we'll get started. I'm good. Been thinking of you. Oh, that's so nice. No, I've been thinking about you guys. I'm on the West Coast right now, but I'll be back next week. Hi, Marshall. I'll give it just I'll get started at the 5-minute mark. We've been on for about 3 minutes. There's a lot going on right now because of this swim competition. Ugh. Yeah, today was actually, it's been kind of cold and it's been a little cold in California. Yes, I figured out the lighting situation. It was actually, I made it better. Okay, I'll get started. So we've been talking about a lot about Lia Thomas. I'll get into this. But the NCAA collegiate championships were today in Atlanta, and of course, Lia Thomas just dominated this. But the good news was there were a lot of protesters there. A lot more people are speaking out. So let's look at what happened with all of this. And this is just insane. And keep in mind, a lot of these rules changed on day one of Biden's presidency. So on day one, when Biden was in office, he signed a bunch of executive orders, and one of them was for gender identity to supersede everything else. So if you identify as a woman, you can be in women's spaces, locker rooms, bathrooms, things like that. So basically, that took Title IX and just turned it completely upside down. And Title IX wasn't even passed until the 70s. So women have fought and fought to have fair competitiveness in sports and to have spaces where they can compete in sports. And this was just gained in the 70s. Virginia Tech swimmer spoke out against Lia Thomas. I have a little bit of that. But that is the good news. There were protesters there. Sorry if I'm looking in the wrong direction. I'm just getting used to a different camera and I'm used to looking at myself. So that's where I look. I'm trying to get better about doing that. Yeah, people are speaking out and people are protesting, and this is what happened. So onlookers cheered Thursday evening. So this was just last night. Thursday evening, as biological man who identifies as a transgender woman annihilated female competitors in a collegiate race. University of Pennsylvania swimmer Lia Thomas clocked at 4 minutes 33 seconds, finishing first in the NCAA Women's Swimming Championship 50 or 500-yard freestyle. The University of Virginia's Emma Wyant, a freshman, finished second with 4 minutes and 34 seconds. So what was Lia's time? 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Wait a second. So Lia clocked at 4:33. Okay, and she clocked at 4:34, 99 milliseconds. Thomas's participation in female athletic events and the NCAA's decision to allow Thomas to do so has sparked a controversy across the nation. So I'm going to have what the mainstream media will tell you what's going on, and then what's actually going on with these girls and even the parents of some of these girls. Hi, Miles. How are you? So here is, where is it? Okay, this is the NBC's Today Show, and just listen to how like giddy and excited and how they frame this as just being super progressive. Here it is.
She's got a shot there. But in addition to watching for her winning those races, Hoda, we're also watching for the potential.
Blaine, it's not just today's race. Leah's actually competing in 3 different events. How do we see the rest of these championships playing out for her?
Hoda, there is so much to watch. So she's going to first hit the pool this morning at 10 o'clock. That's the 500-yard freestyle. The prelims finals are tonight. She's favored to win the 500 and the 200-yard freestyles. She's also swimming in the 100-yard freestyle, and she's got a shot there. But in addition to watching for her winning those races, Hoda, we're also watching for the potential. She is within striking distance of the long-held collegiate records by Missy Franklin and Katie Ledecky. So, of course, we're going to be watching to see if she touches those records during this weekend, too. Hoda.
Okay, so that's kind of what the mainstream media is doing. They're like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I should have said, oh my gosh. I'm trying to stop saying, oh my, the other word. This is so exciting. This is so progressive. And she's the first trans woman. So this is a trailblazer, the first person. And, but this is how females actually feel about it. No, that's what they do. So they call him, her, it, that. I try to just stay away from the whole pronoun crap because it's too much. But yeah, and it's, we're made to think this is so progressive, this is so exciting. It's the cultural equivalent of warmongering. They don't have their dreams crushed by Thomas, so why worry? Yeah, and and what's really sad is they're shifting this. They're making Lia Thomas out to be the victim, but while other women are feeling victimized, you can't have someone be the victim when they're victimizing other people. And I'm using that term lightly. Now, here is an interview. This was, okay, so this is Sav at rapidfire_pod on Twitter. So she has her own podcast right now, and she was interviewing people. So this is a Virginia Tech swimmer competing in this year's NCAA championship, details how her teammate was brought to tears after her place in the finals was taken by Lia Thomas. And this is what you have to remember every time, and what you're going to hear her say, every time something is achieved by a biological male in a biological women's space, something is taken from a biological female. And we talk a lot about cultural appropriation, right? So it's bad to appropriate other cultures for your own gain when you're not that culture. So, you heard a lot of criticism of like a white woman wearing cornrows. That's cultural appropriation, right? Or fetishizing a culture that you're not a part of. And we hear that all the time. And I get it to an extent, especially if you are someone taking the place of someone else that is actually that culture. For example, you had the giant grifter, uh, Alec Baldwin's wife, right? Hilaria Baldwin. She was on a magazine cover, or she was in a magazine list for like that was supposed to be for Spanish women. She's not Spanish. She doesn't have any Spanish blood in her veins, and she was in this magazine being recognized as, a Spanish woman who's achieved whatever she has achieved. She took a place away from an actual Spanish woman. So when we talk about cultural appropriation in that sense, I understand it. You're taking a position away from someone who is actually that culture. How is that any different than this? You are taking something away from someone who was born a biological woman, has sacrificed vacations, time off. She likes Spanish food. Is that not enough for her? No, but I understand the culture. Like, to me, that cultural appropriation, I'm like, yes, that is cultural appropriation. In some of the instances, I'm like, okay, it's a little bit much. I don't think that's appropriation, but it's the same type of people that will argue cultural appropriation, but that will also argue that what Lia is being allowed to do is totally fine. This is progressive, right? Even though it's taking away from women, this is progressive. It's like the oppression competition. Who's the most oppressed? That's the person that gets to take rights away from everyone else. Well, this is the Virginia Tech. I'm going to show you or let you listen to a little bit of what she said.
Competition, and you go into with a mindset that you don't have a chance, if that makes sense. Like, it's hard to compete against someone with the aerobic capacity, the muscle development, the body of a man. It's hard to think about it like that. And staying positive, I bet, for other swimmers who are in that heat is probably overwhelming. I'm not sure, I can't speak for them, but it's disappointing to see and frustrating, definitely.
And you said that one of your teammates was crying today because she didn't make the finals. You said that she was 17th,
Yes.
And there were 16 spots.
Yes.
So Lia Thomas took one of those spots. Talk to us about what your teammate was going through and that experience.
She was very emotional, and it's hard to see because it's her last NCAAs, and she really loves that race, and it was just heartbreaking to see that she put all her effort into it today and went a best time that she went in a morning session before and still not make it back. It's hard to see someone who works every day, every night, still not be able to compete against someone like that.
So that's the reality. The media and all these progressives want us to think that this is so progressive and this is a good thing, but that's the reality. This girl was 17th. I ate corned beef and cabbage today, so that makes me Irish. Oh, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. So that is the reality of it. You also had people that showed up to the championships and they were protesting. I heard some of them. I go back and forth with this. I feel bad that someone as young as Lia is in the middle of all of this, but also this individual put themselves in the middle of all of this. And also, this individual knows the human body and knows the advantage. So it's hard for me to feel too bad. And I also have to fault the NCAA for allowing someone to be put in this position because their rules are complete BS. So here is, dueling protests surrounding transgender participation. So a group of protesters are patrolling the entrance to the Macaulay Aquatic Center at the 2022 NCAA Division Women's Swimming and Diving Championships. Protesters carried signs that read, "Stand up for women, support fair sports for women and girls," protesting the presence of transgender swimmer Lia Thomas at the women's championships. Meanwhile, a counter protester with signs like "We support transgender athletes, hate has no place at GT" emerged as well. Thomas was in action on Thursday of the competition during the prelims of the 500 freestyle in Atlanta, taking a top seed. Thomas is transgender female who formerly competed as a 3-year member of the Penn's men's squad. After transitioning and undergoing hormone suppressant therapy, Lia joined the women's squad at Philadelphia School, having met antiquated NCAA guidelines that only required 1 year of testosterone suppressant. And these girls are being told that they're not allowed to speak up. A lot of girls are really upset about this. And you can clearly see, too, if you look at pictures of Lia Thomas is much taller than many of the girls, has much broader shoulder, a broader span. Also, men have larger hearts than women. They have larger lung capacity. They get more oxygen that goes out to their blood. So there are a lot of biological factors that are not going to be just completely done away with just a year of testosterone suppressant. You're still going to be at a higher level than women. You also went through puberty as a male and competed for 3 years on the male swimming team. And so now, on top of all of this, you have Mom Speaks Out, an explosive video over trans swimmer Lia Thomas, who the mom says is a full-grown male taking from women. This video was pretty compelling. I'll see if I can find the link to it. So the mother says her daughter has personally competed against Lia Thomas, complained that a full-grown male is now being allowed to take from female competitors and break their hard-earned records. She also claimed her daughter and other biologically female swimmers were warned by higher-ups not to speak on the issue. I also read that they weren't allowed to say Lia's name in the locker room. They weren't allowed to discuss this, which is pretty awful. The mom says, "Holy cow, we're going to talk about a male swimmer, a full-grown male, attempting to take down female icon records and taking a spot on an Ivy team from one of Penn's swimmers who have rightfully deserved it." So it's another thing you have to think about. Just Lia being on the team alone took a spot from another female swimmer. And we're talking about this person's going to swim on every relay going forward at championship meets. It is going to take the position of a woman on a travel team. It is going to take a space in every finals. So everything that Lia is competing in, every space that she is competing in, she is taking a space from a biological woman or him. I can't keep up with the pronouns. It's confusing. I'm confused. Ugh. Girls are frightened to speak out about the inequality after they were warned to keep their mouths shut, the mother explained. And they're frightened. They're frightened of losing friends. They're frightened of being kicked off their teams. They're frightened of being told by their universities that they're transphobic and hateful. The NCAA, USA Swimming, the Ivy League, the University of Pennsylvania have all turned their backs on female athletes. So this is a group called the Independent Women's Forum who are speaking up for these women. When biological males are allowed to swim on women's teams, female athletes lose. They lose opportunities to win and compete, and they lose self-confidence. Dividing athletes by biological sex give women the chance to compete and win. And then this is more of what the mother said. I don't want my daughter to have any repercussions based on my desire to speak out for sex-based rights and representation for women. She deserves to have a college experience unmarred by this issue, and she deserves to have the time and ability to process what's going on in her own way. At the end of the day, I hope that the IOC, the NCAA, and governing bodies of sport all recognize that women are women. We can't shrug off our sex. Men are men. They can't shrug off their sex. And women's sports is protected for females. And keep in mind, like, women just got, like, Title IX, that was, I believe, 1972. That Title IX passed, so that's not that long ago. That's how recent women got these rights. When did Title IX pass? June 23rd, 1972. The Title IX of Education Amendments of 1972 is enacted into law. Title IX prohibits federally funded educational institutions from discriminating against students or employees based on sex. And this is where the argument needs to come from. So I see the same sort of faux pas in the anti-abortion argument as well as this argument. So when you're looking at the abortion argument, you have two sides of the argument. You have the pro-women and pro-baby. There's a person right in front of mine. Sorry. So you have pro-women's rights and pro-infant rights. And where they don't understand each other is the pro-women's rights people don't understand that the argument against abortion is not against women. It's for the rights of the unborn child. So when do those rights start? And that's the argument. That's where you can trap a lot of people. Does it start at conception? Does it start at, like, when is a human a human? And that's where the pro-abortion people kind of shut down any dissent, because they're saying, oh, if you're not pro-abortion, you're against women's rights. That's not what they're advocating. They're not advocating against women's rights. They're advocating for rights of the baby. And this is the same for this argument. You're anti-trans. You have to keep that out of the conversation. No, I am pro-women's rights. I am anti-discrimination for women based on their biological sex. That's how you have to frame the argument. Someone once commented that the trans movement is really a men's rights movement. Well, it's quite, no, I understand. And that's why, I don't know if you ever watched Bridget Fettis's show, but they have the crafty patriarchy. And I call it like the sneaky patriarchy. And you would never hear me talking about like toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. You would never hear me talking about that about a year ago, but now I'm like, no, I think there is a patriarchy. There are men that want to win and they want to dominate things, and they have no issue coming into women's spaces and doing that and taking from them. I do think there is a part of that. And I do think it's also important to point out that there are a lot of individuals who are trans. There are a lot of individuals who identify as trans women, and they look at what is happening with Lia Thomas and they say, that is not right. That's not right. And this is not the consensus of trans people in general. A lot of us know that, yes, we identify as a trans woman, but we know that there are biological differences between biological men and biological women. And we do not think it's right to go into women's spaces. Those spaces should be kept safe for women. And Bridget is awesome. She tears into everyone. I remember I know of only one men's rights group, and that was Al Bundy's No Ma'am. Oh gosh. They actually do have some men's rights groups, and a lot of them I agree with. But this is something different, and this is cloaked as progression, but it's not. No one's rights should. I fell. No one's rights should supersede another person's rights. That's when you have issues, and that's what's happening. So, in order to make this one man, that's why it's the sneaky patriarchy, in order to make this one man comfortable, all of these women have to be uncomfortable. And you even heard stories of the women being in the locker room and having to be with someone who, okay, took a year or maybe 2 of testosterone suppressant, but still looks like a male, still has all the male parts, and they have to be in a locker room with that person. And they're also, and what's even more disturbing about this whole thing is the school and all of these officials, all of the people that were supposed to be there to protect these girls and to give these girls opportunities and to have these girls' backs, all of those people are telling these girls to be quiet. Don't talk about it. No, we have to be nice here. And again, we talked about this yesterday, the shifting baseline syndrome. What used to be normal, what used to be indecent exposure for a biological man to be in a woman's space and expose himself, when it used to be the thing to protect girls, especially teenage girls, especially girls who are in their early 20s, against, the boys, protect the girls against the boys and all of that stuff. Now you're just throwing all the girls under the bus and telling them that they're the ones with the problem if they say anything. How fast that has changed, and just seeing that in my lifetime is wild. And it's all under the guise of we're being progressive. Oh, I just saw, no, I actually, rational wrong think. No, you have a point there. So rational wrong think just said, I might have a controversial view, but I think, and here's the conundrum, but I think that we should just go ahead and let all trans women compete in biological women's sports and just watch what happens, because that's what they wanted, right? Oh, and that's the thing. A lot of these girls. So let's take the Penn State or the UPenn. I'm sorry. Let's take the UPenn. Let's take that whole swim team. How much do you want to bet that probably almost every girl on that swim team is a Democrat? They vote Democrat. They probably put some black squares on their Instagram. They probably, were allied with BLM and all of these things. And now they're in the middle of this. Now they're seeing the reality of this is what happens when you just go along with a trend or when you go along with a slogan and you don't think about the actual reality of what you're doing. This is what happens when you live in a unicorn utopia, singing kumbaya and holding hands and running through daisies, and you just vote for everything that sounds good instead of actually looking at the consequences of the policies and of the ideologies that you just assign yourself with because that's the trendy thing at the time. And gonna go trans and crush women. They all support the current thing, like the meme says. Yeah, like what's the current thing? I support it. But this is the reality when you don't think about things, and our country is facing this reality. And, I've often said too, that's why I kind of like rational or wrong think. I understand what you're saying and I understand that rationale because I've often said this about super progressives, whether it was defund the police or voting for Biden. I sometimes think you need to see because we've had it so good for so long. What's that saying? Great times create weak men. Weak men create bad times. Bad times create strong men. We've had these amazing times. I was born in the 80s. It's 5:30. I was born in the 80s, so I grew up at like sort of the 90s and early 2000s. I just feel like we're such a great kind of innocent time. Like we had like grunge music and then Settle Down Quasimodo, sanctuary. Is that what he says? Sanctuaries. Sanctuary. Ding dong. 80s. I am a millennial. I'm an elder millennial. This is really thick juice. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. I just think we had it so great. And you think about it, like if you're just a like middle class or even lower middle class, even like if you were born in America, you have it pretty good. If you think about how kings lived back in the day, pretty much all of us live like kings, even if we don't feel like we're doing well as far as American standards. Um, and I think we just got really comfortable. We don't have to think about things. We just go with whatever the mainstream news tells us, the celebrities tell us, and that's what we do. And now we're seeing the reality. And I do feel bad for these girls. I don't think they asked for this, but in a way, that's what I said when Joe Biden got elected. I'm like, maybe he does need to get elected because if Trump would have been elected, it just would have been like Trump, orange man, bad for 4 more years, and no one would learn anything. At least now, when people are seeing the reality of these super progressive policies, they're like, wow, this sucks. This really sucks. Maybe I should start thinking about who I'm voting for more. Maybe I should start thinking about what the media is telling me more. Maybe they're not honest to me all the time. I think, yeah, just for the law of averages, most college girls are progressive, I think. So they probably did vote for these policies and now they're seeing the reality of this stuff. And I think that's also because so many people they go off to university. Oh my, I was watching a video by ABBA and Preach. They're very funny. And this video was they were critiquing a comedian. Her name is Whitney Cummings. She has a podcast and she was making the point that women have to work twice as hard as men to have maybe the same results. And they were just saying how this is so typical. And they were like, I don't mean to offend white women, but you guys are ruining everything. And I don't mean to say that either or to point it out, but it's a lot of white suburban women that sort of push a lot of these policies because they're insulated from a lot of stuff. You grow up in the suburbs in a nice neighborhood, you go off to university, you get your job, maybe you move to like an urban area, You have your apartment, you get in your car, you go to work, you go to happy hour or whatever it is that you do, and then you come home. You live this really nice, sheltered life where if you have to cut back on something, you probably have to cut back on your Starbucks or your extra shopping or one vacation. Evan Preach channel is all right. I love their channel. Whitney is a Penn alum. She is? Interesting. UPenn actually, I saw another really long story about UPenn, and it seems like they maybe have a pattern of throwing students under the bus according to or in order to save their image or whatever. Explains a lot. It is. It's a lot of like suburban. I think about it. It's a lot of suburban white women that went to university. Those are the ones that go crazy in the protests. Those are the ones that always correct you. And it's like, man, you guys ruin everything. And then they complain about men and the toxic masculinity. Yet they're like probably all about Lia Thomas. Will Amy Schumer ever be funny? Oh gosh, no, she's another one of them. And this was also the topic of conversation. I literally just watched this Abba and Preach video, and they were talking about how they don't like it's so funny. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that a lot of I hate to say it because I'm calling out my people, but a lot of, not all of them for sure, but a lot of white female comedians, they always complain about men. They always complain about how it's harder for them, but they're never funny because they're too caught up on these social justice things. And when they get on stage, they just go on stage and they lecture everyone. And then they get mad that people don't think they're funny and they blame that on the patriarchy. And it's like, no, maybe you're just not likable. You just are not likable. You're not good. And I saw a preview. Amy Schumer had another movie that's coming. She has another movie or a series that's coming out. And it looks awful. It looks awful. The acting is totally flat. The story's been told a million times. Everything is so it looks terrible. And I almost think that Amy Schumer was one of those ones where she didn't really have the crazy amazing talent, but they were like, okay, we need a woman comedian that we can get behind and we can be like, yay, woman, go women in comedy. And so they were like, let's prop Amy Schumer up. Even if she is funny at the Oscars. Oh, someone asked, do I like Natasha? Is it Leggero? I actually do. She had a really funny show called like Period Piece or something. And it was supposed to be back in the olden days, but the humor is very modern day. No, I think she's funny. And there's some female comedians, I don't like all of their positions, but if they're funny, if you're funny, then you're funny. I actually do like Natasha. We were being force-fed Schumer because of the body positivity movement. Her humor is masculine. Yeah, and here's the thing too. And then with Amy Schumer, she will say the most disgusting and disturbing jokes that aren't funny. They're not funny. They're just gross. But that's the typical leftist woman. Natasha Leggero. Yes, she is. I think she's funny. That's the typical leftist woman, though. If you're never accountable, it's always everyone else's fault. It's always like you're the victim. I'm not accountable. Oh, yeah. And then, so there was a video that went out of Amy Schumer, how she stole a bunch of jokes. And by the way, that's not always her fault. Like if it was written into her show, that could have been a writer. But she had a sketch show for a while, and some of the scenes in that, like there's videos on YouTube that will show you. I drop more comedy in this chat than Amy Schumer has. Her comedy isn't funny. There was a while where I was actually like, before my eyes were opened to just how fake everything was, and all of the political propaganda, there was a while where I actually really liked Amy Schumer, and she did have one movie that was okay. But all her movies after that have been terrible. The acting is really bad. And it feels like we were kind of force fed her. And I think you're right. She was supposed to be that body positivity female comedian who's just breaking all of these barriers. And she's not funny. Actually, Whitney Cummings, too. Whoopi isn't funny. Joy isn't funny. Amy should be on The View for unfunny people. Her first special was funny, but it was just a bunch of dude humor using male anatomy. Yeah, she had some stuff that I actually liked, but it seems like more and more she just gets more and more political and more angry. She recently had an interview, so she's going to be hosting the Oscars, which, by the way, no one's going to watch the Oscars. It's interesting because I feel like the old part of Hollywood, a lot of that is dying because people care more about internet celebrities than they do about Hollywood celebrities. Oscars are just a Democrat convention. They also, another thing that they do is if you criticize like an Amy Schumer, it's sexism, and I don't like that. This year, I think. Atkinson Schumer is just nasty. Yeah, Sansoni is the day and time when you don't really need actual talent to become a celebrity. No, you don't. But I think Hollywood too, like Hollywood has gotten, if you look at a lot of people that are in a lot of the major movies and look at where they come from, there's so much nepotism in Hollywood. I mean, there always has been a degree of nepotism, but it's pretty bad. I do not like Brie Larson. Sorry. Not at all. Oh, it was at Georgia Tech. So the NCAA Women's Championship was at Georgia Tech. And yeah, there were a lot of female protesters there. They had signs that said "Save women's sports, support fair sports, and for women and girls." And that's how you have to lead with these things. Support things for women and girls. Make it fair for women and girls. Don't play into their narrative. They're just waiting to call you some kind of phobic. Someone said, all you have to do, Braxton, all you have to do now is record yourself saying or doing something goofy, then post, and literally overnight you'll have 1K likes or 100,000 followers. Someone said Brie Larson takes herself so damn seriously. That's another thing too that I think a lot of these women don't understand. You can't take yourself too seriously. You have to be able to laugh at yourself, and I think sometimes they do take themselves way too seriously, and they get upset over silly things that you shouldn't get upset about. And Greg said, I'm a lefty phobic. I'm afraid of stupid people. I mean, speaking of Amy Schumer, did you know that her uncle is Chuck Schumer? Interesting. Well, I thought we were about to insult Brie Cheese. No, Brie Cheese is the best. Brie Cheese is amazing. We will not insult Brie Cheese. Chuck Schumer is an oxygen. So this is kind of funny. I don't even know if it's worth talking about because Title 42 is just kind of a joke anyway. So Democrats are calling for Biden to end Title 42 border protections despite fears of looming migrant surge. So we know that our border is basically wide open. Yes, they have Title 42, but from the Border Patrol agents that I've talked to, yes, you can expel them because of Title 42, but the same people will be back the next day. So, and it says here, this is even Fox News, 51% of all migrant encounters ended in a Title 42 expulsion in January. Really? And how many of those came back? This is what Chuck Schumer, Amy Schumer's uncle, that's her uncle, right? Yeah, that's her uncle. Title 42, this is what Chuck Schumer said. Title 42 has been nothing short of disastrous for immigrant families seeking asylum from the horrors in their own country. It is unacceptable that this policy continues to be used indiscriminately to remove migrants with valid refugee claims from our southern border. Well, this is what Chuck Schumer is not saying. Over 90% of people that come to the southern border claiming asylum do not actually meet asylum status. And now they're saying that once this is finished, Title 42, which was made for the virus pandemic to be able to expel people for health reasons. So the same news outlet that Chuck Schumer spoke to also said and reported that officials are worried about historically and unreasonably high numbers of migrants coming to the border and could seriously strain border resources. This would track the data released last month, which shows 154,000 migrant encounters in January 2022. In January of 2021, there were 78,000 migrant encounters. I mean, at this point, anything they would do would cause a surge. We've been having surges throughout the entire presidency. Seeking asylum, does that mean they're trying to get to places like San Francisco and California? Ching. Yes. well, they are sanctuary cities. And they are open air asylums, basically. They are talking about this on Timcast right now also. Title 42? Caitlyn Jenner's criticism to her remarks regarding Lia Thomas. No, I just had the balls to stand up. Eva's not with me right now. I mean, they haven't been implementing, like, Title 42 is just kind of silly anyway. This is to me, this is another thing that's just kind of like, I literally have, let me pull his last email up. I am in communication with a Border Patrol agent. He works in Arizona. I actually need to get back in touch with him, but try to find the last thing he said to me. This is the last thing he said. I need to talk to him. He said, we need to talk again. We apprehend these people, process them, and then we transport them up to Phoenix with a court date where they are dropped off into the United States with full status until their court date. If they miss their court date, they get an automatic 6-month extension. 78% will never go to their court date. Keep in mind that around 90%, probably more than that, people that come over the border illegally do not meet asylum status. So they come over the border. Most of them are not going to meet asylum status. They're given a court date several months away. And if they miss that court date, they get an automatic 6-month extension. And 78% of those people don't show up to court. So you have 90% of people that come over the border that don't meet asylum status. And of those 90%, 78% will not show up to their court date. So they're just in the US, free. And that court date is so backed up. So he says 78% will never go back to their court date. And then that court date is so backed up. The closest one we are issuing is 2023. So they get a free year in the United States with a 6-month extension. When they are transported up to the center of Phoenix, Border Patrol and ICE aren't even allowed onto the facility where the buses drop them off. It is an agreement with the state government. So it's handled with a third-party security company. What? Now this is, I can confirm, I obviously can't confirm that anything this person is saying is true, but I can confirm that this person, I checked it, works for Border Patrol. And this is what he's telling me. He's also the same person that told me this whole Title 42. Okay, yeah. we have Title 42. We'll expose them, but they literally just smile and wave to us and say, we'll see you tomorrow. Goodness gracious. Thank you for joining. So there's that. I'll look at oh wow, here's another story. DHS. So this was today. This got put out today. I'm on Bill Malusian's Twitter page. He works for Fox News, and he's basically been on the border since January, pretty much. DHS puts out a call for employees to volunteer at southern border amid large numbers of migrants. There were more than 164,000 migrant encounters in February alone. So, a Wednesday email by Deputy Secretary John Tien and seen by Fox News requests volunteers for the DHS volunteer force more than a year after the volunteer force was activated ahead of last year's migrant surge. The force has also been used to help with the Afghan evacuee resettlement operation last year, as well as during the 2019 border crisis. The email says more than 1,400 employees have volunteered. Once again, we need to tap into our department's greatest resource, the skills of our talented and diverse workforce. Today, I am asking you to consider stepping forward to the DHS volunteer source. They could end this. The email was first reported by Axios, which was also reported that officials are prepping for a surge of more than 170,000 migrants if the administration ends Title 49 or Title 42, a public health order put into place by the Trump administration at the start of the virus pandemic and allows for the rapid expulsion of migrants at the border. Activists and top Democrats have pushed for the Biden admin to end the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC's order, but with February's migrant encounters up more than 60% over the last year, it has raised fears that a migrant surge in the spring and summer could outpace 2021's mammoth surge. Of course it will. Of course it will. It calms down in the winter, and then spring and summer come back and everyone's at the border again. Of course it will. There's no reason it wouldn't. Oh, somebody was asking about Gavin Newsom. Do I think Gavin, you asked that? I don't remember who it was, but you asked that earlier in the live stream. Do I think that Gavin Newsom will be reelected? I don't know. Right now, I'm really looking at Michael Schallenberger, who's running for governor of California? I don't know. I think it might be so bad here that I don't see him getting reelected. But then again, who knows? He is very popular. This is what Michael Schallenberger said. Many believe California Governor Gavin Newsom is unbeatable in November, but they are wrong. Not only are we going to beat him, we are going to create a new governing majority that is capable of restoring our shared humanity and dignity. Here's how and why. So, Michael Schallenberger, who is running for governor of California, is clearly very comfortable that he could beat Gavin Newsom. And the brilliance of him running is that he is not running as a Democrat or a Republican. He's running as he has no affiliation with any party. That's how he's running. And he says, like a lot of Californians, I have a full and happy life. My wife and I own a home in the Berkeley Hills from which we enjoy watching the fog roll underneath the Golden Gate Bridge and blanket the bay. Our children are healthy and happy. We enjoy comfortable lives seemingly far from the It's 6 o'clock. But over the last few, we enjoy comfortable lives, seemingly far from the chaos and suffering in California's downtowns. But over the last few years, the rising chaos and suffering have increasingly troubled me. In 2018, I ran for governor to make the case for abundant housing to address homelessness. In 2019, I called for a state of emergency on homelessness and mandatory psychiatric care or rehab for addicts and the mentally ill who break the law. And in 2021, I co-founded a statewide coalition with parents of homeless drug addicts, parents of children killed by fentanyl, and recovering addicts to advocate for a statewide psychiatric and addiction care system, CalPsych, basically, a crackdown on open air and online drug markets, and a change from the state's de facto camp anywhere policy to ban on illegal camping. And that's why a lot of people are attracted to California. It's not just the weather, although I'm sure that has a little bit to do with it. It's also they don't enforce these like camping laws. You can just kind of camp anywhere and you'll be okay. Free housing doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. And if you're taking someone that has serious mental health issues or serious addiction issues, and then all of a sudden you're putting them in their own apartment by themselves away from people, what do you think is going to happen? Those problems are probably going to get a lot worse. So what he's suggesting is to have not a housing first, to have shelter first, and then contingent housing. So housing based on, are you sober? Are you taking your mental health medication? Are you seeing your social worker? Are you trying to get a job? Or what are you doing? No, it's not slow. So there's that. So we'll see. This to me is a toss up at this point. I think it could go either way. I'm going to follow it to see. Do I think that he will get? I will ask you again. Do you have a bubblegum machine in your kitchen? Do not dodge the question. It's got, yes. It has jelly beans in it right now. Seems like a lot of manpower to control people. But it's not gumballs right now. It's jelly beans. I don't really like jelly beans. Oh, you like jelly beans? I don't like jelly beans. What pets are present in the house? Do you have to put? No, you can just get it. I think. Oh no, you do. You have to put a quarter in it. Yes, they're Jelly Belly. You have to put a quarter in it. Eva's not here. Quinna, come here. Come here. Come here. Come up here. Come up here. Come here. Come up. Come here. Come. Get up here. Quinna. Quinna. She's being annoying. Here, you say hello. Quinna, say hello. Quinna, come here. Why are you hiding from the camera? Oh, there she is. That's Quinna. Vomit flavored Jelly Bellies. Ew, I remember those. They have the snot flavor, the vomit flavor. Ew. I'm a terrorist because I don't like jelly beans. We need photos of Eva and the taco truck. I need to get her a new kitty thing. Ew, earwax. They had that too. How gross. Reagan liked jelly beans. Thank you, goodness gracious. All right, you all, I think I'm going to hop off here. Thank you for joining. It was like the gross flavored jelly beans were probably popular with 13-year-old boys. All right, good night, everyone. I hope you all have no time is a good time for goodbyes. Oh, Sarah. All right, thank you all and have a really good night. And I'll see you later. Bye.